Hey guys, what's up? It's Wheezy here, and welcome to another video from the Talking Heads series. Today I want to go through all of the news that's come out regarding FIFA 18. So there's been a lot of news that's come out, a lot of rumors, a lot of stuff regarding the actual game itself, a lot of teasers. The trailer came out, I believe, about a week or two ago, and I just want to give kind of some of my thoughts regarding the game and some of my wish list for what I want to see, especially from like a FUT standpoint, because the reality is I spend about 99 to 100% of my time playing FUT. So I know a lot of you guys do. You're probably FUT players as well, which is why you're watching this channel. So I'm going to try to keep it as Ultimate Team related as possible for the video. So let's start off with the actual announcement itself. The big news coming out of the announcement from E3 was the Ronaldo cover athlete announcement. So this is big news because Ronaldo has traditionally been associated with PES. He's never been on the cover of a FIFA game before. This was big shocker for me because I really didn't see that one coming. I know that Messi was the cover athlete for, I believe, 2 or 3 years, but as of 2 years ago, he was a big cover athlete. And I know in the past they've always been very concerned with having Adidas athletes because they had a really good relationship, EA did, with Adidas. So having an Adidas guy on there was kind of a big deal because FIFA is always very interested in pushing Adidas rather than Nike guys. However, I'm guessing that's been loosened up within the last couple of years, which is why you're seeing a lot more Nike guys make deals with EA. It couldn't have been cheap, definitely, to get Ronaldo on the cover of the game itself. I'm sure it took a lot of negotiations to make that happen, but really cool stuff because they're introducing him quite heavily and integrating him very heavily in the game. So I expect to see a lot of Ronaldo all over the game itself. So some of the big things to watch for are obviously his player rating in Ultimate Team. But Messi, for the most part, has always kind of had a little bit of an edge on that, and he's had to really, really play a lot better than Lionel Messi in order to get a high rating in Ultimate Team or even in the game itself. So it'll be really interesting to see where they rate him. Normally they like to push their cover athletes very heavily, so you see Ronaldo as the highest rated player in Ultimate Team. Also, he's been kind of teased as a heavy integrated part of the Journey Part 2, so the Alex Hunter series. Very interesting in that sense because he does have potential pending move to Man United. I personally think it's probably not going to happen. I like to think that they're, as much as I would love to see it happen because I'm a United supporter, I think that they're just doing that in order to develop interest and some urgency. I think personally what he's doing is hoping that this either goes away or his tax stuff goes away, or he gets Madrid to help cover some of that stuff by threatening to leave. So I wouldn't be shocked if he doesn't make a move to United, but if he does, fingers crossed, I'd be a very happy man. I don't necessarily know how much work they put into making that a Real Madrid specific type storyline, but you'd probably see a Man United type takeover of the Journey, which wouldn't be totally out of what they would traditionally do, because they do have, obviously from last year, a very high integration of the EPL teams and players. They've got all the stadiums, they've got all the licenses for all those teams, and I think they were really trying to push the La Liga license this year. So I don't think it's that big a deal. If he went to Liga for PSG, you might see a little bit of a different thing. But again, those are very, very long shot possibilities. So I expect him to stay at Madrid, and I expect to see Madrid heavily involved in the Journey Part 2. The other big news was Icons. As a PS4 player, I'm very happy with this. Legends was always something that I was very jealous of, but it wasn't enough for me to move over. I've always been a PlayStation guy, probably always will be a PlayStation guy. I've got my founder status on there. So to see it finally move over to cross-platforms on both is massive news. For me, the big one is Maradona. I really want Maradona. I've always wanted him in the game. So if he would have become a legend Xbox only, I would have been very jealous. It would have been tempting me to actually potentially get an Xbox. But Maradona is the big guy that I want to get in there. I think he's to me my favorite player of all time, and to me the best ever. I know that's a very debatable thing, but Maradona's the guy that I just think was the GOAT. What he did in 1986 at that World Cup, he basically put the entire team on his back and won a World Cup, which you haven't seen almost anybody do since then. Just such an amazing feat. Pele, Lev Yashin, Yashin, I can take it or leave it. I'm sure a lot of people didn't even know who Lev Yashin was. A phenomenal keeper, old school guy. I think it's a cool introduction. I'm very interested to see who else they bring in. I know a lot of you guys were very excited about Henry and Ronaldo. I expect R9 Ronaldo's price to just be through the roof, so I wouldn't be too shocked if he didn't get into my team at some point next year. That's one of those guys that's going to be very overpriced, as well as Thierry Henry. I'm not a massive Thierry Henry fan. I think it's really cool because there's a lot of Arsenal guys, a lot of guys that grew up watching him, especially in that age group where he was, at the peak of his career when you guys were kind of watching it at a younger age. So that's a cool one to introduce. But to me, Maradona is the big one of those first five. But I'm really looking forward to see how many legends carry over and what new names they're bringing over into the game. There's 3 editions coming in. Standard, which gives you £10 worth of jumbo premium gold packs. Cristiano Ronaldo loan and FUT, and 8 special edition FUT kits. To me, not massively concerned with that. The jumbo packs, you can just put £10 on the game and get the packs anyway, so I'm not always concerned with that. Especially early on, you might have some interest in it, but as the game gets going, the jumbo packs usually don't pay out that much, only really during the first week when you really only have a couple packs choose from, including the premium gold pack. So the jumbos look good, but especially right now, like if you got a jumbo pack right now, you're really not that excited about it this late in the game for FIFA 17. So they're not really great packs. They don't necessarily pay out. So I wouldn't pay any extra for it, but it comes in £10 worth, comes in the standard edition. So a nice little bonus there. The Cristiano Ronaldo loan, the loan players, I've never really been too excited. I still got a lot of loans in my club, so for me personally, I don't even really use them, but it is cool to have a Cristiano Ronaldo loan. And the 8 special edition FUT kits, I don't necessarily even use those either myself. So if you guys like the special kits, then maybe a little cool soundtrack, guys, get them on there, but whatever for me. The Ronaldo edition gives you all the standard stuff that came on the standard edition, as well as £40 worth of jumbo packs. Again, take that into consideration that you're probably only getting 2 packs per week. And again, jumbo packs don't necessarily pay out. 3-day early access is probably the real interesting one for a lot of people because you can get your team going. The FUT web app will probably be out about 7 days-ish prior to the game being released, so you can get going. But to get the game 3 days early, you can really get your team going, especially by building coins through playing games. So that one's probably the most interesting one. And then the Icon Edition, you get £80 worth of jumbo premium gold packs, which is quite a lot, but again, they're jumbos. All the standard and Ronaldo Edition stuff. A Team of the Week loan player pack, which you guys know my feelings on loans. Team of the Week is kind of cool, but whatever. And then an R9 Ronaldo loan. So for me personally, the Ronaldo Edition with the 3-day early access, it seems to be the most interesting one. But a lot of loan stuff, a lot of packs that you could just spend the extra money that it would cost you to get that extra version. You might as well just put into packs directly. So I don't necessarily see a big deal in getting that. Really, the only incentive for me is to get the 3-day early access. So that's my suggestion, to get the Ronaldo one. But you guys can also choose what you want. That's the freedom of choice, so pick whatever one you think. If you want all the goods and want to have everything in the club, go get the Icon, but I don't know if I'd see the value in it. It's also a very expensive version of the game. There's also Legacy Editions, PS3 and 360. I don't know too many people that play FUT still on that, so I apologize if that's insulting to any of you guys, but I wouldn't be surprised if this is the last or maybe the second last year that they do it. I think that audience, PS4s and 360 or PS4 and Xbox One have been out for a couple years now, so it's usually something that they don't support. I don't know how much of those features are going into those Legacy Editions, but don't be too shocked if you start seeing those drop off by the wayside in the next couple of years. In terms of gameplay, a lot going on. So I've been reading a lot about what's been going on. It is year 2 of Frostbite, and that's the important part to remember. I was a big fan of FIFA 17. I know it gets a lot of grief, especially from guys that play FUT champs and competitive players. I personally liked it, especially considering it's the first year of Frostbite. It's not easy to move over to a new engine. So for guys that don't come from a coding background, which is a lot of you, or don't have any experience with gaming in terms of what goes into building a game, it is a lot to move over onto a new engine. So I thought the game played really well. It's got very few noticeable bugs or things that are massively overtaking the game in terms of making it unplayable, considering it's the first year of Frostbite. So I expect second year to be very significant improvements, especially in the way of animations. It sounds like they've added a whole lot of animations that are going into the game. Some notable ones. The signature styles, players running specifically towards the way they do in game. I know Ronaldo's kind of always had that, but Sterling with the little dino arms and stuff like that, and having players have more touches on the ground if they're smaller players, I think is a cool thing that you'll start noticing differences in the way players run, different interception animations, balls getting taken down off the chest, headers and stuff like that, as well as this new half tackle that they've been talking about. So because I haven't had any hands-on time with the game, I can't really talk to it too much, but it sounds like they're adding a lot more that they potentially missed or have just noticed in the first game. I know some of the guys that work on the gameplay team, and they're really smart guys, so they do pick up on this stuff. They are listening, and they understand the game very well, so I expect some really big things. But as far as like the first year for FIFA 17, I thought it was a really good first year, and it's just going to get better from there with this Frostbite engine. New dribbles are the new, I guess L2, R2 is going to be RB or R1, and it's quotedly been overhauled by EA. So very interesting to see what they do. I know I personally use the L2, R2 button quite a bit. I don't necessarily think it's very realistic because anyone can do it, even defenders, and it's kind of a way to create space, which is nice, but at the same time, I don't know anybody that ever dribbles backwards and side to side in the crab type run. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with this new overhauled dribble, but very exciting in that sense. New crossing. So RB or R1 with cross is going to be a ground cross, and LB, L1 and cross is going to be for high looping crosses. This is good for me personally. I think it's a nice addition because I don't really like the double taps or triple taps. I don't find them very responsive. You guys can probably agree that I don't know how many times you've tried, hitting a low-driven shot and it's just skied up, or the guy just baby kicks it into the keeper's hands because you didn't time it properly or you had spasm fingers or whatever. But I just don't find it very responsive. I'd rather have one button click and another button click to initiate something. So I think that's a nice change. The low ground cross, it'll be interesting to see how strong it is. It's been very strong this year. It's a very useful tool. I'm also interested to see what a regular cross looks like because they're always very looping. As far as the high looping cross, I don't know anybody who uses that. If anything, I think it's a detriment because it just puts the ball in the air for a really long time and people can kind of get under it, and defenders can run back, and just gives them more time to do it, and it's also hard to generate power from it. So I don't know what they're planning on doing with that, but hopefully it has some use in the game. But I don't foresee me using the high looping cross. The R1 ground cross is going to be a very interesting one, though. The low driven shot apparently is not going to be as overpowered. Apparently it was the keeper animations weren't integrated into the first year's worth of animations. So that's what caused it to be overpowered. EA also have a tendency to amplify certain new features, which I get. I mean, it's the selling features of these games. So to have the low-driven cross, I just would like to see it dumbed down because I find the low-driven cross to be just ridiculous in terms of being in traffic, and the guy will just drive it directly into the bottom corner almost every time. So it'll be nice to see that kind of balance a little bit more. They also included a quick sub option, which I think is a really amazing idea. I never even really thought of this personally, so kudos to whoever came up with that idea. But basically when the ball goes out of play, the RT or R2 is a quick option. I believe it goes up for 8 seconds, and you can pre-select subs. So now you don't have to sit there and wait and wonder if the guy's going to quit out or if he's going to rage quit or what he's going to do or who he's going to bring on. You can just kind of be on the fly. It's going to make the game a lot more seamless. So hopefully it's not slowing the progress of the play down too much, because right now it's already slow when the ball goes out of play, and sometimes the guy has to run and get it, and you're just like, come on, I want to take the throw in. And it's caused so many times where you are just spamming the button to try to click through, and then he just runs up and takes a quick throw in. So hopefully they kind of figured out the timing and the button sensitivity of that. But it sounds like a great addition to the game, so you're not sitting there for 35 seconds every time the guy wants to make a sub. Long shots apparently have been overhauled in terms of creating dramatic moments. So this is one that scares me a lot as much as it excites me. I like the idea of long shots, but to me there's a nice balance with them right now. Last year they were very overpowered. This year, like I said, I think there was a really nice balance. It worries me because, as I previously mentioned, EA like to they like to really draw out a lot of their new features and really have them become very prominent in the game, like the low-driven shot, so you can really tell that they're going on. I don't like that idea for long shots. As much as I like a good long shot, the thing is, I believe, especially as the game becomes competitive, I think you should earn your goals. So creating space and creating goal-scoring opportunities. I don't like the idea of guys just, if they're losing 1-0, just walking through the middle of the field and you've got a perfect defensive line and the guy just hits some ridiculous long shot and scores. To me, that's not really earning a goal, and I think that could be a real detriment, especially if they're trying to make the game a competitive game where you're actually playing more of a chess match and you have to create opportunities and it's who's the better player. To just go up and smack long shots and abuse them, that's what's concerning to me. So I hope that that is something that they include, but at a very cautious level. I don't want to just see people walk up and hammer shots from all over the place and score everything that they shoot. So it'll be interesting to see how they integrate that one in the game, because I know people would lose their minds, and what I foresee happening is, especially if this is just an abused tactic, they just end up patching it and it just becomes whatever, especially in Ultimate Team where the gameplay is so fast and guys will just walk up and hit long shot after long shot after long shot, and you'll just start seeing Reddit threads and forum posts about people losing their mind and getting really angry at it. So don't be surprised if this is something that is in the game, but it's not super overpowered, especially for very long. Through balls have been reworked. I'm very thankful of that. I thought through balls were very overpowered in the past, very underpowered. Now they've been nerfed so heavily, and there's so many times where you've got a guy going through on net and you through ball and it just basically goes to the keeper, or it just continues to roll and roll and roll and roll and roll just along at a speed that's fast enough so the keeper gets it and then your player runs over the keeper or something stupid like that. There's just ridiculous times where through balls are just totally useless. I don't know too many people who use the threaded through ball. I think it's too tough to execute in order to really justify using it. I don't foresee any real differences with it, but maybe you guys have a different opinion on it. So I'm interested to see through balls. Apparently they're a lot more direct, so I'm interested to see how they've integrated that in the game. But through balls were definitely something that weren't very prominent in this year's game, so it'll be a nice re-edition, I guess you could say. The visuals have been reworked. Big one for me, I'm a big fan of the visuals. I love stadiums. I'm hoping they've included a lot more new stadiums. I really want like the Stade Louis II and maybe some of the Scottish stadiums like Celtic Park or Ibrox or whatever. But like I love having new stadiums in the game. And not just that, but they've regionalized the crowd. So apparently if you're playing in South America, you'll see a lot more activity in the crowd. Or if you're playing in Italy, for example, you'll see flares and things getting thrown. Maybe not thrown, maybe that's more of a South American thing, but you'll see just very specific things, especially with the ad boards on the side, cars and different ad types and stuff like that on the side of the field. So it's not just a generic atmosphere, which is a really interesting one for me. The thing that I'm very skeptical about is the fact that in Ultimate Team, because you're not playing with a certain team and that's their stadium, you're playing with that stadium, which could be like the Munich stadium, and you're using a PSG home kit and a Man United away kit, and you've got players from the Serie A, and it's just like this hodgepodge. I don't know how much that'll be integrated into Ultimate Team. It's things like the EPL integration that went into like the scoreboards and the overlays and whatnot that went into like playing seasons or playing not Ultimate Team, basically any of those modes. If you're playing career mode, for example, in the EPL, there's a lot more EPL stuff going on there, and all that stuff basically gets removed, so Ultimate Team doesn't really see any of that. So with the visuals, I don't know how much that's going to get incorporated. I hope they can carry some of that over into Ultimate Team, but for me, I don't see any of the EPL stuff or the cool stuff that they're doing with these other leagues, because it just gets removed into a generic EA banner and generic EA intros for Ultimate Team anyway. So don't be surprised if you're an Ultimate Team fan and you just don't end up seeing that. They've been talking about the new lighting, though, which is a big a big one for me, because right now the lighting prevents you from using certain stadiums. Stadiums like the Velton Arena, the San Siro, the shadows are so heavy that you can't even use them, and guys get mad if you do try to use them. Even if, like, I've got a great TV and great lighting in my place for gaming, so for me it's not a massive ordeal, but it's still even hard for me to see it. So if you don't have like a pro setup or something like that, it's going to be hard for you to actually take a look at some of these stadiums and be able to play with them, because they're just, the lighting is so harsh, it's so dark and it's so light, and there's such a contrast that when players are running, especially through the Veltons Arena where you've got like a lot of the grading on top, it's like playing in a maze. It's very tough to do. So hopefully they've sorted that out with the new lighting, because that's something that I'd like to do. To have stadiums that you can't essentially use is very annoying. New celebrations, they included the Dybala mask, they included the Ronaldo crouch and a bunch of other ones, which I'm sure they'll announce, but always exciting to see that. Also new skill moves, you know, they always integrate new skill moves, and I'm always really excited. Even though I'm not the best skiller, I really only use about 3 or 4 skill moves that I kind of recommend that anyway, just mastering a couple skill moves anyway. Unless you're a real skiller and you're just sitting there screwing around with the controllers, you really aren't going to use that much of them anyway, so it's not a big deal, but it's cool to see for people that are better than me that are able to use them. Interesting to see team styles of play, so defending like Juventus, or attacking like Madrid, or playing the way Munich does, you know, like having a whole bunch of different styles, having like direct play like United, like these types of things are going to go in there. Again, I don't foresee them happening in FUT, because you're essentially creating your own team and that stuff's going to get eliminated. But for people that play like career mode and use certain, you know, teams where they use the default teams off kickoff, it'll be a nice little integration. In terms of things that I would like to see personally, this is kind of my wish list. My FIFA 18 Dream Team, I'll put it above here so you guys can see it. The big one for me, I don't know if this is going to be in 18, but I want to see them remove chemistry links the way they currently exist. I'd like to see a reworked chemistry system. My team, as you guys can see here, is you know, comprised of players from all different leagues, but I use a player like David Villa, for example. Unless I'm building an entire top line which is all Spanish, it's impossible to get David Villa into a team, because realistically you're not going to use MLS. Like MLS overpowered teams like they had in FIFA 12 and 13 don't exist anymore. The MLS is, especially if you're going to play like FUT Champs, is you're putting yourself at a huge disadvantage by using an MLS team. So it's impossible to use some of these players. And the justification or the rationale that I always heard from anybody I talked to at EA in the past about this was they didn't want to remove chemistry links because their opinion was it would just have everybody creating the same team. And my answer was, my rebuttal to that was, you're seeing players create the same team anyway because they're forced to do these. So you're seeing meta teams for the EPL, for the San Siro, and even the Liga and Liga to a lesser extent now. Because at least with La Liga, it's very expensive to build them. But you're seeing guys using the same players. They're forcefully using the Chris Smallings and the Eric Bailly's of the world. You know, they're not going to go, if there's like a gem who's playing over in the Japanese league and you just want to put them into the team, you can't do that because they're too hard to fit. So I actually think a total opposite. I think everyone's got players that they like. They've got their own kind of dream team, and I'd be very interested to see how guys comprise their teams if you totally remove chemistry and you just basically had some type of progressive chemistry or whatever you want it to be. Like maybe they default at a certain chemistry level, and you know, the more games you play or the more goals you score, whatever it is, it basically builds the team up. But I want to be able to build my dream team, to have the strikers that I like, to have the best players that I like. The reason that I think that, not only because selfishly I want to be able to build my team, the reason I think that that's the way forward is you're seeing it in the FUT Champs series, the regional series. You're seeing these guys create a team that works chemistry-wise, and then they're basically going immediately into like a substitution. They're pausing it, and they're just reworking the team to the way they want. And that's ridiculous, because on the biggest stage, where you have to showcase your game, which is the FUT Champs series for Ultimate Team, you're seeing guys abuse these tactics and having to do that because it makes their team the way they want to play. So to have that being showcased at your grand stage, to me looks very very amateur, and I think it's something that they definitely need to take into consideration. So I think it's 50-50 whether you're going to see a chemistry rework. I've heard a lot of people being very kind of like, no, that's not going to happen, and they're still kind of stubborn to it. I think eventually it will happen. It's just whether they had time to do it. I'm sure it's a big undertaking to remove that and to rework a chemistry system, but I'm hoping that they do it, because I really think that people want to build their dream team, and I'm very excited to play unique teams rather than just playing the same old backline, same attacking, Mane, Martial, Musa, same stuff over and over and over again. So to be able to actually build your team you want would be just a huge, that if any of you could remove every other feature and just have one update, that would be the one thing that I would like to see. From a competitive aspect, the FUT Champs, very interesting, because the servers had always been an issue with people dropping out. I'm on PS4, I have a very strong connection. I personally have never seen this. I haven't had issues with connectivity, so I don't know if this is an Xbox issue or if it's PlayStation stuff. I'm sure PlayStation fans will probably have a total different opinion on this, but hopefully they sort the server issue out, at least if it's for Xbox, at least sort the Xbox servers out. But for me, I haven't really personally had any effect by it. I haven't played a ton amount of FUT Champs, so I'm probably not the best person to speak to that, but hopefully they do sort their servers out. But even if they do sort them out, it's always going to be an issue. People are always going to blame servers for disconnects and whatnot. So at least in your competitive game modes, make sure that if you do disconnect, you're not giving people losses, because that's just Bush League. In terms of the actual FUT Champs itself, like the regionals, I thought they were very well done in terms of the way they broadcast them, in terms of the way the structure worked. I thought it was a very good first year for it. I didn't really have any noticeable complaints in terms of viewership, in terms of what I was watching. It looks like the structure worked well. You know, to see Vitaly Rocky win it was very interesting. The only thing that I would maybe recommend would be to figure out the structure a little bit different. Maybe make it a 2-game playoff rather than a round robin, or if they do keep the round robin, make the second a 2-game playoff, at least for the knockouts or what have you, because that seems to be the Gfinity structure, and it seems to work quite well. Guys like playing in the 2 games. It gives you a home and away, it gives you an opportunity to change things up if you need to. And I thought the structure with the dropping down to like the loser bracket and coming up, it was very confusing for the fans. It took me a couple times of watching it to really understand what was going on, because there's so many games going on at once. Also figuring out a way to showcase the games so they're not all played simultaneously all the time, because it was very kind of scattered. It was all over the place, but I know that was their first opportunity to do it. So it'll be really interesting to see how people fare in it, and to see the players themselves, how they like the FUT Champs changes for the next year. But for season 1, I thought it was a decent start to it. But now on to more of the gameplay stuff. So I talked about removing the chemistry links. One of the things that I would really like to see in terms of the gameplay itself is just less computer defending. I'm an abuser of this, I'll admit. The way I've defended, because it is the best way to defend, is basically controlling my midfielder and just moving him around and just letting the backline stand, because the backline tackles for you. They always stay in perfect positions, especially if you can find the right balance of aggression versus how high they sit. Your team is basically going to auto-defend for you, and that's really all there is to it. There isn't really a lot of manual defending that's required. So I'd like to see people be able to have to manually defend, because right now the way to let a player defend perfectly is to just let the computer do it. And imagine playing like Call of Duty, and it's just like, hey, the best players are the ones that just let go of the controller and let their players shoot automatically. Let the computer shoot for them. That sounds effing crazy, you know what I mean? So to let the computer basically do all the grunt work is not really proving who the best player is. So I know a lot of the pros manually defend, so it'll only get you so far, but at the same time, you can win a lot of FUT Champs games by just letting the computer defend, especially if you're a very poor defender. It just does it for you. So I'd like to see that fixed to a level where there's a nice balance between having to manually defend, at least not having defenders put in tackles for you. Right now, if you sprint, the computer's going to automatically tackle. So removing things like that and just finding a nice balance. I know that there's 10 players that are computer operated at any time on your team, but having to rely on the computer to do all your defending seems ridiculous. I'd like to see increased fatigue through players. I think so many players have abused high pressure and team pressing. I think it was more prevalent last year, but it's something that's massively still in the game right now. What I would like to see is players that do this right off the kickoff. Their players are basically dead by the 30th minute. You shouldn't be able to do this for more than 30 minutes in game. It should really only be a tactic that you're using if you're trailing and you really need to get in the game, but it should just drain your players right away, because you can essentially play with it for about 70 minutes plus, and at that point you could be up 4-0 because you're abusing this tactic and your players are just buzzing around like bees and it's just overwhelming opponents. I just think the fatigue is something that we've seen actually become more of a factor. You're actually seeing guys being more affected by it, but it's happening at too slow a rate. So guys are still abusing high pressure team pressing. The players are just running at full speed all game, especially in Ultimate Team where it's already fast. You're seeing just mayhem. So if you've got the ball, thank God they included shielding, because it would just be like bouncing back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. It's just too highly effective a tactic to sit there and abuse. It doesn't take any brain cells to do it. You can basically just turn it right on and players just buzz around like bees, and it will just cause the other team to turn the ball over because of duress. Their players think that they're under duress and they shoot their passes astray. So I would like to see that really dumbed down and or just increase fatigue. I would like to see shielding dumbed down. Hopefully this is something that they have taken on into account. I like the idea of the shielding button in terms of like, hey, if guys are just double and triple pressing you, you can shield it, because guys will just do that. Like, especially as I previously mentioned, they're abusing high pressure tactics. So to be able to just shield it and not have a guy just run in and take the ball automatically, I think is a very useful thing. However, to just hold it and just have the guy like automatically turn, especially in the box, when you're attacking, you can essentially go in and shield it, and if the defenders are running around, like, it's almost like they can't identify where the player is, and they're just doing this, and your player's just moving back and forth automatically. So you can just sit there, or you can go into the corner in the 90th minute and just shield, and there's no way to get off of it. I think that there needs to be like a time sensitivity to this. So if your player's just sitting there holding it for more than like maybe 2 seconds, the player is likely going to give up the ball. So you can do it to kind of quickly put yourself in a good position, and you don't necessarily have to manually do it. It just kind of like will automatically do it. But after a second or two, you're likely going to get the ball taken away. I think it was just something that was very overpowered, and it was highly abused by guys. I've seen too many guys just build like strong teams, and you essentially can't get the ball off them because they're just shoving you. The other thing is using the physical trait on 50-50 balls. So when the ball gets dumped into the corner and two guys are chasing after it and one guy just shoves the other guy, you just body him. To me, that's obstruction. I have never seen two guys running for the ball shoving each other without the ref calling it. So I think that's something that should be removed. You should really only be able to use that physical tactic to body a guy once you've got the ball, or one person's got the ball. You can use it to dispossess the guy or use it to shield the guy, but to run down and just shove the guy off the ball and put him off his run, to me, is ridiculous. I understand why they did it, because they want a slower guy. If you got like PK and Mane, and PK's running, to be able to kind of put his body in a better position, but you shouldn't be able to just go like that and shove the guy totally out of it. It makes no sense to me, and guys, again, that know how to use it just abuse it so heavily. So they need to find some balance towards finding guys that can actually put themselves in good positions versus totally shoving you out of the way. To me, that's totally ridiculous. I want to see the keepers have a little bit more intelligence. Not necessarily, I'm not going to go into all the tactical stuff, but when the ball is free, I know you guys will probably lose your minds just like I do at this, but when the ball's free and the goalie does that stupid trot and it's like sitting there and it's slowly rolling out of bounds, and they're just kind of like zombies walking after it, and then it rolls out of bounds and the keeper just walks past it, and you're just like, just get it. I know that's probably a very simple fix. Just have the keeper have a little bit more awareness and be able to sprint to the ball and identify, especially if it went off of one of your guys, be able to go pick it up so it doesn't go out. If it's going out because a guy shot it and it's going to roll out of bounds and they're going to get a goal kick out of it, sure, have them do that stupid zombie walk. But especially if your player knocked it out, rather than having it go for a corner and your keeper just kind of like chugging along there, go have him be more intelligent and go pick the ball up so he knows that, hey, I don't want a corner given away against me. Also going on to corners, I don't want to get off on a rant, but the amount of excessive corners and block shots, like guys running and sprinting and blocking shots, I know they dumb down the block shots a little bit, but still way too many blocks, especially when guys are sitting in ultra defensive shells and they've got basically 8 men behind the ball and 2 speed demons just sitting up front waiting for counterattacks. You're just shooting and hitting balls and they're just like deflecting for corners, and then the player will eventually get a corner and just counterattack you for a goal. So they need to figure out how to prevent that. I'm not going to try to figure out what the answer is for that, but the counterattack goals off of corners is ridiculous. I've done them so many times against other opponents which didn't deserve to get countered. The guy's putting so much pressure, but he's got 8 corners in a row, and then on the 9th one, I score on a counterattack. And it happens to other people too, so if you're the guy who gets countered, I feel bad for you too, because it's happened to me as well, but it's just something that shouldn't happen. It shouldn't be an advantage for the defending team for the other guys to get a corner. It makes no sense. Kickoff boost, very similar. I'm sure this is something that they've taken into account, but I'm surprised they haven't patched this. Kickoff boost is basically just like players not identifying what's going on, but so many goals have been scored off the kickoff boost, and you're just panicking to just run and just slide tackle a guy because you just foresee this bouncing back and forth to the guy every time. You run, you tackle it, runs into the guy, he takes it from you. Your defender takes it back, he takes it from you. Like, it's just that doom, 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 like back and forth, but he keeps getting the ball until he slowly works the way forward, or he passes it, bounces off your defender, bounces to another one of his guys, and it's just mind-numbing. So fix the kickoff boost, please, please, please. 45th and 90th minute aids. You know, I've previously mentioned in my other video, basically what this is, essentially it's just the sliders dumbing down so you can have a higher percentage of scoring a goal. You still have to score the goal. The players aren't totally idiotic. They can still make stops, but it's a little bit easier. The keepers drop down a little bit, so it's a little bit easier to score goals, but the original idea for this was just to prevent ties so guys could have an opportunity to score goals. But 45th and 90th minute are the worst when it's a really tight game, 1-1, 0-0, especially like 45th minute, you know, or 90th minute, excuse me, when you've like worked so hard and then a guy just scores a totally undeserved goal. Or if you're, more importantly, if you're up 1-0 and you're working so hard to prevent the other guy from scoring, you know, he doesn't need an advantage, especially if he hasn't generated any offense and he comes downfield and just scores because it's the 90th minute or the 45th minute. I just don't see any benefit to having it. You know, I get it that you can kind of make the games a little more interesting, but especially if you're trying to make the game competitive where really you want to see who's the better player, you don't need to give a guy an additional advantage by giving him the 45th and 90th minute aids. It's not something that's necessary. The cream will always rise to the top. The better team will win in extra time or in a shootout if he deserves it. So, you know, just remove that because I don't think it's necessary anymore. I would like to see an elusiveness stat. So one of the things that I think they've done, I guess you could say better, air quote, is having stronger players being able to shield. However, the players that I think are affected by this the worst or the most in a negative way are the really overly technically skilled small guys. So players like Iniesta, players like David Silva, even Lionel Messi, who's not the strongest guy in the world, because they're not strong, they're getting bodied off the ball. So like a guy like Yaya Toure, very useful in the game, even though he's kind of slow and moves like a semi-truck. You know, they're not necessarily very agile. They're still able to keep possession of the ball because you can just physically prevent. You can hold off a guy. You can just hold him back or put your body in it. Or as soon as you go and try to dispossess the guy, he just holds the L2 shield button and just basically sets up shop. And you can't get the ball off them because they're too strong. So to have a guy like Iniesta or David Silva, especially if they're not super quick like David Silva, they don't really they're not really that useful because even though they're agile, they're technically very good. Because they're not quick enough to evade guys like Lionel Messi, they're not useful because they're too weak. So I would like to see them have the ability to, even though they have tight control, like if you try to dispossess them, they're just elusive. They're a little bit harder to dispossess off the ball. You know, if you ever watch Iniesta, even when he looks like he's going to get tackled, his positional awareness and his awareness of just opposition is just so high that he's able to avoid players. He's able to avoid opponents. He gets the ball off in just the right amount of time. So especially if you're not the most technically gifted FIFA player, he's still going to be able to at least prevent you from getting tackled every time you've got him on the ball, because he's just that much more technically gifted. You know, he's able to just avoid it. So I'd like to see an elusiveness stat go in there where these guys are able to keep possession of the ball. So even if they get tackled, you know, more often than not, the ball might bounce out, but they're going to get it back because they are better and they have a higher elusiveness stat than some other players. So that's a nice addition that I think would really make some of these very high-rated, smaller, more agile guys that don't necessarily have the strength be a lot more effective in game. I would love to see, you know, ones to watches get a major overhaul for next year. What NHL does is their Movember cards, if you can pack one of these guys early on, it incentivizes you to get them early on, just like the ones to watches. But anytime a player goes up, you know, whether it be man of the match, team of the week, you know, team of the season, team of the year, the card matches with it. So like it just runs up, because there were so many cards this year that were totally useless, especially ones that came out at, you know, mid-season. So it didn't really, you know, they were moving halfway through the year because essentially in the first part of the year they weren't getting the playing time. So you're seeing a lot of guys that weren't even necessarily getting the interest that they were from their club. So they're definitely not going to get, you know, a team of the week. Or a player like a defender like Eric Bailly. I use Eric Bailly, and I know he's overpowered as is, but you know, there's no real benefit to getting Eric Bailly, and there's no benefit to having his ones to watch card, you know, because he didn't get an inform, so they're totally worthless. Or like Paul Pogba, if he didn't get his last inform, his highest rated card would have been the man of the match. If you have the ones to watch, it should have a value of whatever the highest is. They do it, like I said, in NHL, and I don't see any downside to them. Those Movember cards are the most highly sought after ones, and they just go up with the highest rated player in any possible card that he gets throughout the course of the year. And it's a very cool card to have, because you know that you don't have to get another one for the rest of the year. I would like to see the pack weights heavily changed. I spend a lot of money on one of my accounts, and I don't want to say how much, but I spent some money on you know, my paid account during Team of the Season, and I packed one Team of the Season, one during the entire Team of the Season. Packs that I'd earned, packs that I'd paid for, packs that I had used with coins, whatever, even though I don't recommend using coins. You know, I opened a ton of packs and I got one. I watched David Myler open 180,000 FIFA points. Okay, that's like what, $2,000-$3,000 worth of FIFA points, and he packed two useless informs. I watched him open 125k packs back to back to back. He was just getting junk, junk, junk. I don't see why they need to be that bad, because I get that they don't want to flood the market, but especially if you're one of these guys, like I know the FIFA YouTubers are ending up with big teams anyway, but if they are, you know, if they're spending thousands of dollars on the game, you should be getting Ronaldo. You know, you should be getting a Messi at least once during the course of the year. It doesn't hurt you by the end of the year to have a bunch of people have Messi and have Ronaldo. I get that if you've spent zero money and you just haven't done anything, you know, intelligently in order to earn coins, maybe you shouldn't be able to get Ronaldo. But, you know, if you're opening a ton of packs throughout the course of the year and you haven't packed Ronaldo, there's something wrong. Or packed a Messi, or even packed a Neymar or Bale, or somebody high rated, a Suarez, whoever. You know, this game should be rewarding players, and the pack weights have gotten worse and worse. To give you guys some insight, I've played Ultimate Team since day zero. Okay, so we're, what, 9 years into Ultimate Team? I've packed 0 Messis and 0 Ronaldos ever on anything, and I've opened thousands of packs, thousands of them, 125k packs, like 100k packs, every type of pack possible. I've opened a ton of everyone, and I've never packed either of them. The pack weights are so low, there's so many people playing, that even if you had to do things to make them untradeable, like, to me, it doesn't hurt to have these guys in the club. I understand not wanting to flood the market, but to have like more things, and that takes me to my next point, the SBCs, have more untradeable SBCs, premium SBCs. I liked what they did with I think it was 10 days of Christmas or 12 days of Christmas or whatever it was, and the FUT birthdays, having those premium SBCs, making them untradeable. It sinks coins into doing them. But if they want to remove players and they want to remove coins from the market, do that. Have more of those. I don't know what caused them to turn them off, but just having players that people find are like meta players or players that are popular, to have them do an SBC like El Shaarawy, even though he had informs this year, to have his premium throwback SBC was totally awesome. People loved it with Torres, even though Torres, I don't want to say he didn't deserve it, but he hasn't been deserving maybe of a 92 pace, 92 shooting, but like these types of throwback ones, people love that stuff. And look how many people have done it. It's just such a cool card to have. There's no downside to having like untradeable things like that. So, I suggest, figuring out ways to improve the SBCs, and that could be a whole video in itself, but just have more players and have the ability to earn higher rated players. I just think that having pack weights at the weight that they are, like team of the seasons were almost impossible to come by, which is why their prices are so high. They're ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I literally packed one the entire year. Thankfully, it was the Egyptian guy from Roma, Salah. I was drawing a blank there, but he was a good one to pack. But at the same time, won during all of the team of the seasons, and I did a bunch of pack openings. I did a bunch of earned packs. I tried to like figure out ways to get as many packs open as possible, and to earn one, and it didn't even come from a 125K pack. Like it was just totally ridiculous. So they definitely need to figure that out, because people that are spending money on the game and you're getting zero reward, you could literally buy 12,000 FIFA points and get absolutely nothing. Imagine spending 12,000 FIFA points and just buying premium packs where you get 3 rares. You could legitimately not even get an 82, 84 rated guy in like 12,000 FIFA points. That's insane. So I just think that they need to raise the pack weights. I don't think having more players on the market is a bad thing. I understand that the prices are at a point where they kind of want them to be, but it's stupid that guys are spending crazy amounts of money and getting nothing. To me, that makes no sense at all. So that I would like to see FUT Champs open to an entire week. I don't know what the actual structure would look like, but I think FUT Champs right now, I mean, I basically created my Founder Academy series because I can't play FUT Champs. I have a girlfriend, I have a 9-to-5 job. I spend a lot of time on the weekends with her, with family, with friends, whoever, and I don't have the time to spend, 12 hours. You basically need a good solid 10 12 hours minimum, I would say, to finish your FUT Champs game. I don't know too many people that can do that in 3 days. Dedicate 13, 14 hours of FUT Champs, FIFA. I'm not insulting anybody that can. I get a lot of you guys are in university, a lot of you guys, have the time to play it, but, there's a lot of people like myself that can't play it. So I just think you need to open that up. I'm hoping that they use the first year as a test phase to try things out, but 3 days, 40 games, that's a lot of games, too many to play in that small span. Even if they had 2 days for entry and then 5 days to play 50 games or whatever, because I don't think lowering the amount of games helps. You're basically just going to create more, is the word duplicity? You're going to create more guys that finish on the same records. You're going to see too many 30-0s, 29-1s, 28-2s. You're going to see too many of those guys. It's going to create a lot of parity, I guess, in the leaderboard. So I think that you need to keep it at 40, if not expand it to 50, but maybe have 50 across 5 days or whatever it is, 50 across a week, however entry works. Maybe keep entry open for the weekdays, and you can just always get into it, but you only have a week to play the 50 days, and there's maybe a day cutoff, whatever it is. But just they need to change it so it's like 40 in 3 days is just too many, is my point. I'd like to see Seasons revamped. Seasons has been a great addition when it first came in. It went from 5 to 10. But to play 10 games or however many games it takes you to win season, or especially in Division 1, and get 15,000 coins. 15,000 coins is basically chump change at this stage. I understand that guys can sit there and rattle through Division 1, but I don't know too many people that play 7 games or 8 games, whatever, back to back to back to back to back, and want to do it for 15,000 coins. Same goes for draft. I don't know if draft's even that necessary. I don't play draft that much, but just get higher rewards in for some of these game modes that require very sweaty gameplay to win. If it's a lot of work to win it, you should have to earn it by or you should have to be able to get, or you should get rewarded, excuse me, for playing these game modes, because it's a lot of time invested. They're very sweaty games to play, and I just want to see that go. I'd like to also just see more tournaments in general, just see more variety. Like I end up playing a lot of uh, single online matches just because I like playing, to my point earlier, I like playing different teams. I don't want to see the same teams in divisions where I'm just playing Martial and Sadio Mane and Heung-min Son's 89 rated left forward playing at striker. That same combo over and over and over. And they're just so overpowered, and it's mind-numbing to play. So I just end up playing in onlines. Sometimes I'll play noobs, sometimes I'll play top 100 players, but I like the variety. So I'd like to see other game modes where you're actually playing variety. There's a reason the DT or DKTs are so popular. It's because people like the variety in those gameplays. So they like playing against different players, different matchups. You don't know what you're going to get, but you know what you're getting in a seasons, and you know that you're just kind of like dreading going into playing seasons because you know it's the same thing over and over and over. So I'd just like to see some more game modes where they're getting a little bit more variety, and take it back to when FIFA was fun. You didn't know who you were going to play, you didn't know what you were going to come up against, and that was part of the enjoyment. You could come up against a beginner noob, or you could come up against a top 100 player, and it was actually fun because it was a test, or it was easy, but you had to figure it out as the game goes on. Playing against the same spam over and over and over is just, it's draining and it's mind-numbing, and I just want to see some variety in the game. Give me some more options. Players' in-game stats shown in the menus are something that I definitely think needs to be in there. For people to have to go to Futhead to watch YouTube reviews, to go to Futbin to see in-game stats is ridiculous. I think it's just something that, more information the better. A lot of other games do it. Why not Fut? I'd want to be able to see, because everyone goes checks at Futhead anyway, and goes checks to see what their individual stats are and what they're like with different cards. You might as well just take it into the game, so people, not to knock Futhead or take any of their business away, but you might as well put it in the game because people are looking on these websites anyway to do it, so you might as well just put it in there so people can see it in the game. But that's pretty much it for the top information, or the top things that I want to see go into the game. I'm sorry, it's a little bit of a long video. But I'm really excited for FIFA 18. I just think it's going to be a great game. There's going to be a lot of improvements. I'm excited to see what comes out of FUT especially. There's going to be more news that comes out towards Gamescom in mid-August, so I'll be looking forward to that. And I just think that this year is going to be a really interesting year, so I hope that they do a lot more with FUT especially. But I look forward to starting fresh, even though I love my team from FIFA 17. And I don't want to lose it. It's always an exciting part of the year when the new game comes out. So I'd love to hear what you guys think. I'd love to know what you guys think are the more exciting things that you've heard so far. Are you a PS4 guy that's interested in icons coming into the game? Are you an Xbox guy that wants to see the servers fixed? Leave down below in the comments section, things that you're most excited to see, or things that you'd like to see fixed in FIFA 18. Leave a like on the video, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. I look forward to hearing from you guys and giving you guys more content that you guys enjoy. Take care. Peace.